You shouldn't be playing with these. I think it's time we had a talk. Now you're probably thinking, but toys can't move! And we don't usually move in front of people. In fact, it's never been done. But you are such a...
Vicious.
Yeah, vicious. And stupid.
Selfish.
Nasty.
Repulsive little butt face.
That we made an exception just for you.
Please don't hurt me.
Hurt you?
Please don't.
We don't want to hurt you.
I do.
No, Buzz. All we want is to clear up a few things. Guys. We're tired of being kicked around. We're tired of being blown up, pulled apart, burned, and broken. So we're gonna be watching you, Sid. Yes, sir, all the time. You can't get away from us, kiddo. Your toys can see everything. So play nice.
The toys! Ah! The toys are alive! Help me! Help me! They're alive! They don't like me! Help! Help! The toys are alive!
I'm kind of new at this toy thing, but something tells me we aren't supposed to do that.
Oh, what harm could it have done, Buzz? Just screwed him up for the rest of his life, that's all.
No! 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 Ah! Ah! No! I'm sorry! I'm sorry! Oh no! I'll never hurt you again! No! No! Mom!
Toss him overboard!
It's Buzz!
He's alive! And Woody's helping him. Isn't that wonderful?
Great, now I have Gil. Come on! We've got to help him up on the truck!
We're getting closer! Don't they feed this animal? Follow me, partner! What the? Battery! They're running out! There goes our ticket home. Not quite.
This is not a particularly, from an animation point of view, there's not a tremendous amount happening in these tests. It's really, we call it a spin test for obvious reasons, since there's so much spinning going on. And it's really just for the technical folks to show the directors what the hair is going to look like. What we're doing is we're just going through all of the facial controls from the neck up on Sid, one by one, just to ensure that they work. This is a great test of Scud running. Nice and dynamic, physically believable. All these tests that you're seeing, this is how we work on our animation system. And I notice things don't look very pretty, but they have the same mass that they do when they're rendered with lighting and shadows and whatnot.
We've taken a sculpture of the dog, which was made for the purposes of capturing the shape, and we sample points along the surface of the dog, and from those sample points we fit a mathematical surface that we can then animate, add the surface descriptions that make the rest of the film happen. There's a lot of planning. I spent about a week planning out where I should sample him. And then from that I spent maybe 2 or 3 days digitizing each major part of his body. 2 days on the body and probably 3 or 4 on the head, and then several days kind of taking all that data and fitting it together with the program I have here so that all the parts of the body blend smoothly and it doesn't look like he has any holes or gaps in him.
So what do you have to do? He hasn't been final yet. Scud
Oh,
hasn't been
Scud
final.
hasn't?
So this is his final moment.
Oh, wow.
Well, let's see. I mean, to be honest, there isn't a whole lot that's done except kind of tweaking the animation controls.
Uh-huh.
Peter wanted to know whether you really wanted the jaw to hinge way back there, and I told him you did. I told him, yes, you wanted that, you liked that. I liked it. He better like it.
Did you see the run cycle?
No, I haven't shown him the motorcycle.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. We're looking at the MyBridge stuff, you know, and looking at the real extension.
Uh-huh.
See how, when you compare how thin it kind of gets in here. Because he looks like a puppy almost, you know.
Uh-huh.
Look at the tail, though. The tail works great.
Yeah. Happy, Scud?
Scud's never happy.
This is an early test for Mom. From an animation point of view, it's a little wonky, but again, it does what it needs. This is a test for hair. She's got that awesome, I don't know what that is. Looks like she dipped her head in some man-made material. This looks sort of like varnished wood. And there's this kind of super weird, stringy-looking outer layer. It gets even worse, even stringier. But when you put them all together, you actually get a fairly realistic, pretty decent-looking head of hair on Mom. Looks like she's still a little heavy on the hairspray, but doesn't look too bad.
When I first got here, I read the script and talked with John and made a lot of notes on the film and the characters and what was going on, and then found the two key contrasting sequences, one of which is where Woody pushes Buzz out the window.
Buzz! Buzz!
One where they reconcile at the end of the film.
Buzz, I can't do this without you. I need your help.
I kind of worked up a palette for those and talked to John a lot about those, and a lot of his ideas on the color for this film were from like Maxfield Parrish and illustrators like William Joyce and Kevin Hawkes and Steve Johnson, children's book illustrators. So he had a pretty good idea of what he wanted color-wise, and there was a lot of saturated colors, a lot of bounce light and things like that. And our main character's home, because we want it to be a safe environment and something that just said warmth, you know. And then we have Sid's house, which is kind of dark, stuck in 1972, which was kind of fun. But you know, we have paneled walls, really cheap paneled walls, and avocado green sculptured carpet, and rusty beds and barbed wire on the beds, and torture devices, you know, and and a lot of wild angles. But the biggest thing this film does to advance computer animation, I believe, is it tells a story. It tells a very simple story with really developed personalities and relationships. The story led the art direction, the lighting, the music, you know. It challenged the technical crew on this film to things that maybe they didn't think they could do or hadn't thought of before. And then there's a lot of little technical advances on the way. I mean, there's no better way of learning new things and doing new things than just doing them, or having a problem presented that you have to solve, you know, rather than just sitting in a room and saying, well, let's try this or let's try that. You know, what if, oh my God, we designed something in the story that we need to do in a certain way. How do we do it? And there's nothing like challenging one of the technical directors, because they could solve anything here. You know, they really can solve anything. But also, one of the things we tried to do with this film was to remove it from its computer look. You know, the thing that computer does easiest is straight lines, and we have our share of straight lines because this is a film with a lot of architecture. But we tried to soften it by rounding the corners slightly here and there, and using a lot of specialized lighting, a lot of bounce light, and a lot of very, very careful lighting. We had a really great lighting crew on this film. You know, just planning a palette and planning a color for the entire film. And we didn't really try so much to make everything so realistic and the toys realistic and the humans realistic. What we wanted to do was make it believable, you know, and create an entire world versus trying to create reality. In a lot of ways, we've tried to make it hyper real, you know, and I don't mean like more than real. It's just a kind of a heightened sense of reality. And what we tried to do with a cartoon. It was still a tremendous challenge and something that I haven't seen anywhere in computer animation. This is Andy's room, late afternoon, and it's after Buzz Lightyear has gotten here, so you can see kind of the Buzz posters and the Buzz Lightyear comforter on Andy's bed. And if you look very carefully at the book titles, if you've seen some of the other Pixar short films, you'll probably recognize a few of the names. If not the title of the film itself, then certainly if you look at the credits, you'll see other people's names on there. One thing that was really hard to do when we started this was try and find a way to caricature the world and shapes in the world. The one thing about lighting and texturing that we do here is it really does bring it back more into a really believable world. And so caricatured shapes, if the whole world isn't caricatured, that tends to work not as well. So this is the Dynaco gas station in Andy's neighborhood. You can see it's kind of a little brontosaurus in the logo. What we always wanted to do was kind of a 50s style leftover gas station in the neighborhood. And so we got a little bit of that. And we also wanted to get the really harsh fluorescent lighting. It's kind of got a blue tinge to it and just very harsh and very exposing. You can see things like little oil stains and tire tracks and oil can stand there. So if you look here too, some of the things that we always struggled with were getting that cheesy cement rock texture on this trash can right here. If you look also inside the lobby of the gas station, you can see a few things like potato chips, and it's actually all there. So there's a lot of detail that sometimes you see in the background. Sometimes we wish we had spent more time on the things we do see than the stuff we really don't see. But the film changes so often and so fast in story that it's hard to keep up with that. Still, I think that it looks pretty good, and I'm pretty proud of it. We had a great art department on this film. This is Sid's room, and there's things like, I think there's, in the final film, there's underwear and socks hanging out of the dresser. And then if you look very carefully, you can see a waffle iron there with a baby smushed in it, little toy doll. And there's a really great poster up there, killing Paul Bunyan and his Blue Ox of Doom. The shooting target is actually one from a layout artist, Craig Good's office he's had hanging up. You can see how well he keeps his room locked. And there's just lots of junk laying around. We modeled a few things like cans and tapes and cups for other purposes in the film, and we needed it for set dressing, so we would sprinkle it throughout the room. One of the things that's really hard to do with the computer with a computer film is to really get the sense that it's a real space and not just kind of a cold environment. We were able to utilize little bits and pieces from all over the film and kind of cram it into Sid's room so that it looked like a mess.
This is where we're going to explain the animation process of how we make films here at Pixar. This is a scene from Toy Story 1. This is when Buzz and Woody first meet. Now the first stage is the storyboard stage, and you'll see the drawings, still drawings done for the scene. It's kind of like a comic book version.
All right, that's enough. Look, we're all very impressed with Andy's new toy.
Toy?
T-O-Y, toy.
Excuse me, I think the word you're searching for is Space Ranger.
This next step is the layout phase of production. Once the storyboards and the models are ready, they come into layout. This is where we first build the film on the computer, our first step into 3D. There's no performance yet. That's what the animators do. Here we concern ourselves with the basic composition and blocking of the film.
All right, that's enough. Look, we're all very impressed with Andy's new toy.
Toy?
T-O-Y, toy.
Excuse me, I think the word you're searching for is Space Ranger.
The next step in the process is animation. And this is where the animators take the story ideas and the layout and really bring the characters to life. And this is where they take good story ideas and truly make them great with their really amazing performances.
All right, that's enough.
Look, we're all very impressed with Andy's new toy.
Toy?
T-O-Y, toy.
Excuse me, I think the word you're searching for is Space Ranger.
This is the final stage in the production. This is when we've taken the animation and we've added the shading and the lights to it. And this is where everything comes together and we get the final images.
All right, that's enough. Look, we're all very impressed with Andy's new toy.
Toy?
T-O-Y, toy.
Excuse me, I think the word you're searching for is Space Ranger.
Layout is the basic filmmaking part of the process. We build the foundation of the film. We take the models and the storyboards, and we construct each shot. We grab the sets, the characters, the cameras, put everything together, get it ready for animation. In this process, we face a lot of problems. So problem solving is a big part of our day, and I'd like to show you some of the tricks we used to solve problems we found on Toy Story. There's a right and a wrong way to compose over-the-shoulder shots. This is a typical movie situation. You put an imaginary line between the heads of the two characters and make sure the camera doesn't cross that line. It sometimes gets called the stage line, sometimes the line of action. If the camera crosses the line, notice how Woody is suddenly replaced by Buzz. Just as in live-action filmmaking, keeping the camera on the correct side of the line makes sure that, well, in this case, Woody stays on the right and Buzz stays on the left, and the audience doesn't get lost. What do you do when you have one character who's a lot taller than the other and they have to talk together? Well, this problem was faced in old Alan Ladd films, where his leading lady was often much taller than he was. They would dig a little trench for her to walk in as they paced along in a two-shot. So we called this trenching. We would bury Woody 2 or 3 centimeters into the ground to get his face down closer to Buzz. And in this view, you can also see that animators don't animate what isn't in the frame. For this shot in the Army Man sequence, we had to do a substitution. One paratrooper model had the parachute rolled up and on his back, and a completely different model had the parachute that could open. We needed to swap them during the shot. So the two who jump off at the head of the shot are pulled in underneath the stairs, and waiting below, just out of camera view, were the two with the opening chutes. This side view shows that the first 2 paratroopers get pulled out of the way, and there are 2 with parachutes waiting just out of camera view. The audience never knows what happened. For this shot of Buzz and Woody flying, we had an interesting problem. When animation finished with it, they were really moving about 5 miles an hour, and the camera was pointing diagonally up into the sky. So to give the illusion of the right thing happening, I put another camera on the street and zipped it past the trees. We then rendered the background from that camera and composited Buzz and Woody in front. In this sequence, we had a little bit of a problem. This is where Buzz has just gone out the window and the toys are really upset. The storyboards were drawn as though Andy's desk were the size of a soccer field. And in fact, we did cheat up the size of the desk for this sequence. But it was so tricky to figure out, we ended up standing up with each other in the screening room doing practically a square dance, figuring out how we were going to block it out. We also had an interesting requirement. Our normal stage line in this movie had Sid's house on the left, Andy's house on the right, and we had moved that line around. We needed to get it back where it belonged before Andy came through the door. So that big whirling camera move around Woody while he's being attacked with the Army Men was just to put the stage line back where it belonged.
Okay, Mom, be right down. I've got to get Buzz.
Believe it or not, we are in the animation pit here at Pixar Animation Studios. And this is where all the animation that you see in the films is created. If you look around, you'll see the animators take their cubicles and they decorate them in really cool ways. But in the end, it all comes down to this. This is an animator's workstation, and these are the tools of his trade. Now at this point, we're going to take you through a progression reel that shows you specifically how the animation is created. The first step is layout, where we block the action of the scene. Sometimes an animator will shoot some live action reference to help him create the performance. Now the animator starts to work out the rough body gestures.
Nothing. I'm sure Andy was just a little excited. That's all. Too much cake and ice cream, I suppose. It's just a mistake.
Now the animator continues to refine his overall performance.
Nothing. Nothing. I'm sure Andy was just a little excited. That's all. Too much cake and ice cream, I suppose. It's just a mistake.
We always feel that if the pantomime performance is working, then the facial animation is the icing on the cake.
Nothing. Nothing. I'm sure Andy was just a little excited. That's all. Too much cake and ice cream, I suppose. It's just a mistake.
And finally, after weeks of work, the final shot.
Nothing. Nothing. I'm sure Andy was just a little excited. That's all. Too much cake and ice cream, I suppose. It's just a mistake.
The definition of animation is to give life to, you know. And to me, one of the definitions of character animation is that an object moving around has got, his actions have got to appear as though they're driven by its own thought process. So our system is designed for an animator, traditionally trained animator, to interact with a computer in a way that was easy, convenient, had all the hooks and bells and whistles that they were used to with hand-drawn animation or puppet animation.
You can learn the computer fairly simply. And, you know, there's a lot of funniness and buttons all over the place, but it's actually fairly simple. You know, this is pretty much the same as a bouncing ball. So now I've got my keyframes here, one on the ground, one in the air, one on the ground again. And as I flip through the drawings, you can see that's basically the movement it gives you, up and down, which is pretty boring. So I can tweak the in-betweens using this, which is a spline editor. And these are my keyframes here on the ground, in the air, and on the ground. And I can pull this so that as it hops up in the air, it will hug that top keyframe and then come back down again. So now as I flip through it, you can kind of see that it's favoring the top extreme. And then if I wanted it to now travel across the room as it hops, I can place extremes here. You create a movement across the room. So you just keep layering stuff. So by the end, I'll just have numbers all across the screen. But I'm not really looking at the numbers. I'm looking at what they do to this image up top. And with a character like Woody, we always describe it as a marionette. And as the character's built, you attach strings or controls. You basically just key in those extremes. And then depending on how you overlap the keys, you can get a nice flowing movement.
Nothing. Nothing. I'm sure Andy was just a little excited. That's all. Too much cake and ice cream, I suppose. It's just a mistake.
So first we have the dialogue, and I look at the dialogue to see where the sound falls and how I can fit the visuals to the dialogue. We start with, this is the soundtrack, and that's all we have to go with. So we have...
Nothing. Nothing. I'm sure Andy was just a little excited. That's all.
And we try to find out on what frame does each sound fall on so we can fit the visuals to the sound. Based on the sound, I figure out what I want him to do. I do thumbnails indicating his acting. And that way I know exactly what I'm going for in the computer before I start. So I try to really think about what is the dialogue saying, you know, where has he come from and where is he going in this scene. So that's all done in the planning of the thumbnails. So this is Woody, this is his stand-in, which means that it's just made out of basic geometric shapes like cylinders and spheres. And it goes faster, that's why we use it at this point, to figure out the motion. To move Woody, I just move the controls. This is his elbow. I can move his elbow up or down. The next one down is the wrist. I can move his wrist however I want him to look. And so on down. Here's his first finger. I don't know if you can see that. The nice thing about working with the stand-in model is that it's actually a benefit to you as an actor. I think if you can actually make it work and read and communicate without any facial expressions, without the use of you know, your face, then you've done a really successful job. There's actually another camera that looks directly at his face, so that when I'm done with his body, this camera will stay locked to his nose. So no matter where he turns, up, down, sideways, the camera stays right here, and then I can work just on the facial animation. So now if I want him to smile, I can just grab one of his smile controls, turn that up. Ta-da! Let me have him smile on the other side as well. It's so precise. You have an incredible amount of control in acting. Like, we've done some scenes where Buzz is thinking to himself, and he's just got these little eye darts around that I don't think you could ever draw. It's just so precise that it's stuff that you do, everybody does, as you're just looking around the room, but it's something you can actually recreate with the computer.
In this section, we're going to be looking at a series of progression images, and these progression images are going to be showing us shading and lighting, how we build our shaders, the surfaces on the models, as well as how we build our lighting our environments, as well as lighting our characters. Really what we want to look at here is the color, the texture, and the emotion that all of this color and light add to our scenes. So in particular with the shading, you're going to see a buildup of textures that not only put surfaces on our models, but they're also adding an organic sense. They add dirt, they add scratches, they add a sense of something being real. And then with our lights, we're going to see the lighting of our environments, but in particular you'll also see lighting of our characters, building the lights, adding rim lighting and key lighting to our characters that really give them a sense of being in the environment, but also help pull them away from the background so that you can really see them, so that your eye is focused in on the character.
And another thing, stop with this spaceman thing. It's getting on my nerves.
Okay, so we're going to start off with the progression reel here. Everything starts with story, so these are the storyboards that have been scanned in and put together by editorial, working out the timing and the pacing of our shot. And then after that's done, we go into layout. Now the set's already been built by set dressing, but layout first is going to go in there with the camera. This is the initial composition, just sort of blocking out where the camera should be for the duration of the shot. And here's the character blocking, so all of the beats that the characters have to hit over the course of the shot, but no real expression or real animation yet. Now you have the animation, and we have our basic colors in there, but we don't actually have our surface textures yet. So we have all of the expression, all of the animation, but none of the shading. Now here's the shading, but none of the lighting. So you can see the textures, all the textures on Woody, the differences in the surface. Some are cloth, some are plastic, all of that is done. But then that mood and ambience, pulling the characters from the background, giving everything its real shape, that's all done in lighting here, for the background and for the characters.
Where's that bonding strip? And another thing, stop with this spaceman thing. It's getting on my nerves.
So the first thing we're going to see here are the storyboard panels assembled in editorial, working out the timing, the pacing of the shot that we're going to be building here. And then layout goes in, puts in the camera, and blocks out the key beats so that we get the timing in the 3D world, in the computer world. And then animation will work first with a stand-in model. They can block in all of the motion, they can get the pace, the overall action of the characters, but notice there's no faces, no real body. They can't put in any expression. And then they go in and they work with the heavyweight model, the real model, to do all of the finessing, all of the additional overlap, the facial expression. And the lighting gets that with all the shaders. And the first lighting you're seeing here is basically just the master lighting. There's been no character lighting. There's been no special treatment for shadows. The door, for example, didn't change as it opened. And here you can see how the light now